Playing the you have, I don't game with my boyfriend's unforgettable ex. She immediately revealed a shocking fact. I bathed with Ethan last night, causing my expression to darken instantly. Ethan sternly rebuked me. It was merely a hot spring bath, what's the big deal? If you can't handle it, don't play. Later, to secure a win, I mentioned that prominent figure from the She family, claiming he pursued me for 3 years, though I never consented. Ethan curled his lips into a mocking smile. Aria, I think you're so desperate to avoid losing that you've lost your mind. How could Xavier possibly be interested in someone like you? I refrained from arguing and publicly declared our breakup. Subsequently, Xavier frequently included me in his social circle until everyone there became aware of me, which finally caused Ethan to panic. Just after finalizing the wedding date with Ethan, his unforgettable ex, Vivian, returned to the country. Tonight's welcome back party was for her, and she was the one who suggested playing the game. What I hadn't anticipated was her immediate revelation of a startling detail: she had bathed with Ethan just last night. As her words settled, the previously lively private room fell into an abrupt silence, with everyone's eyes shifting back and forth between Ethan and me. I realized they all wanted to witness the drama, but I had no intention of addressing relationship issues publicly or being gawked at like a spectacle. Thus, with a grim expression, I downed the drink in front of me, implicitly conceding defeat, allowing the game to proceed while I chose to remain silent on other matters, though the others sensed something unusual. Could it be true? Aria has been with Ethan for nearly 2 years and never bathed with him. It seems Ethan truly loves Vivian most. What will happen to Aria now that the wedding date is set? Ethan abruptly knocked over his glass, forcibly interrupting the speaker. Then, for reasons unclear, he turned to me and sharply reprimanded. It was just a hot spring bath. What are you fussing about? It's trivial. If you can't handle it, don't play. His sudden shout left me momentarily stunned, but I quickly regained my composure. Typically, someone misunderstood would immediately seek to clarify, yet Ethan didn't. People only deflect blame onto others when they feel guilty. Ethan's defensive outburst must stem from something between him and Vivian. I couldn't help but suspect that, after their long-awaited reunion last night, alone together, they likely did more than just soak in a hot spring, and the thought of their possible betrayal filled me with an indescribable wave of disappointment. At that moment, someone, unable to bear it any longer, asked, "Are we still playing? If not, let's end it." "Play." Vivian responded almost instantly, without hesitation. However, she paused, lifting her gaze to stare directly at me. "Just drinking is so dull. How about we raise the stakes? The winner decides the punishment. What do you say?" I wasn't particularly interested in this game and had only come to accompany Ethan, so I instinctively wanted to decline, but Ethan abruptly pulled me close and agreed on my behalf. "Sure." This time, it was Ethan's turn. After a brief silence, he awkwardly stated, "I've worn a wedding dress." The room erupted in laughter, and a friend teased, "Ethan's going all out to win, revealing his deepest secrets. No one can beat him this round, right?" Vivian swiftly interjected, "Who says no? I've worn a wedding dress too, and with Ethan, no less." My hand froze as I happened to hear Ethan chuckle. Then, as if recalling something, Vivian looked at me with an expression of feigned concern. "Sister-in-law, don't be mad. It was like this. Back then, it was trendy to take wedding photos with best friends, but mine were all busy, so when Ethan found out, he accompanied me without a second thought." The incident was indeed straightforward, but Vivian's animated recounting made it sound more like bragging, and I suddenly felt a wave of nausea. After speaking, Vivian casually opened her phone album to show everyone, whether intentional or not. The first photo displayed Ethan not in a wedding dress but in a black suit, embracing her from behind. Their expressions radiated happiness, resembling a couple who had just entered matrimony, causing the atmosphere in the room to tense immediately as someone fixed their gaze on me, seemingly eager to gauge my reaction. Vivian seized the moment to glance at me, and seeing my silence, she stuck out her tongue playfully and swiped to the next photo. "Hee, sorry, sister-in-law, I showed the wrong one earlier. This is it." In the second photo, both Ethan and Vivian wore snow-white wedding dresses. With photographic evidence, Ethan lost. Vivian nonchalantly set the punishment. "How about this? You pick anyone here to kiss, regardless of gender." Ethan clicked his tongue and raised an eyebrow slightly. After all these years, you still lack originality, can't you come up with something else? Vivian pouted and loudly retorted, what? This is an easy win for you, don't you see sister-in-law right there waiting? Hearing this, I was taken aback. From Vivian's words, it seemed she was creating an opportunity for Ethan and me. Had I misunderstood her earlier? My cheeks flushed with shame, unwilling to judge a noble intent with a petty mind. I forced a smile at Vivian. Seeing this, the crowd began to cheer. My heart pounded rapidly, as I suffer from intimacy anxiety and am unaccustomed to public displays of affection with Ethan in front of so many people. Even during our usual neighborhood walks, holding hands, I'd pull away as we neared home, feeling entirely uncomfortable at the thought of acquaintances witnessing our intimacy. However, today's circumstances were exceptional, so I could make a slight concession. With this in mind, my cheeks warmed as I mustered the courage to tilt my body slightly, facilitating Ethan's kiss. Yet, without so much as a glance at me, he turned and kissed Vivian without hesitation. The air froze momentarily, and someone couldn't help but gasp. I stood rigidly in place, staring in disbelief at the scene before me. Ethan kissed Vivian right in front of me. My curled fingertips dug deep into my palms, yet I felt no pain. After an indeterminate time, Vivian shyly pushed Ethan away. The girl pouted, casting me a half-smile. Oh, what are you doing? Sister-in-law is still here. Ethan paused slightly, as if only then recalling my presence. The infatuation on his face vanished instantly, his voice tinged with helplessness. Vivian's too mischievous, always scheming. Kissing her was like punishing her, so she won't dare set such punishments again. Upon hearing this, Vivian huffed, hands on hips, and snapped back, who says I don't dare? If you dislike it, I'll keep choosing this punishment. Each time you do, I'll kiss you. Dare me. See if I won't. Vivian and Ethan inexplicably began bickering. I tried several times to interject but couldn't, as they traded remarks back and forth seemingly tense, yet their expressions were shy and timid. Any discerning observer could tell they were flirting. My heart sank, recalling how, when I first started dating Ethan, a mutual friend had subtly warned me that he had an unattainable, unforgettable ex. Being someone who tolerates no deceit, I immediately confronted Ethan. He didn't deny it, admitting he'd once had a profound relationship, though it was in the past. Everyone has a history, right? So, naturally, I didn't dwell on it. Yet, I demanded Ethan explicitly assure me his heart was free of her. I recall him confidently pounding his chest, promising, rest assured, Vivian and I ended long ago. Even if she returns, there's no chance for us. With that, I let go of my concerns. But now, Ethan's actions utterly contradict his claims of having moved on from Vivian, leaving me both deeply disappointed and furious. Just 2 days ago, I sent out the wedding invitations. Had Ethan confessed even once during this time that his heart still harbored another, I would never have agreed to marry him. Isn't this toying with me? Enraged, I turned to leave, but Vivian stepped forward and grabbed my arm, stopping me. She smirked at me, her eyes brimming with provocation. Sister-in-law, it's your turn. Surely you're not too scared to play and want to run? Backing out now isn't an option, right, Ethan? At Vivian's call, Ethan promptly chimed in. Aria, since you agreed to play, you must follow the rules. Be good and don't ruin everyone's fun. I stared at Ethan for a long moment before asking, puzzled, Ethan, who exactly is your girlfriend? He looked at me, stunned, and after a pause replied, of course, it's you. I smiled, my eyes filled with disappointment. Is that so? Then why do you keep siding with Vivian? An outsider might think you two are the couple. At that, Ethan's face darkened almost instantly. He glared at me fiercely, his words forced through clenched teeth. Aria, don't let your own twisted mind taint everything. Vivian and I are just friends. Just friends? Who kisses their friend? Who deliberately troubles their girlfriend for a friend? Pretending ignorance while fully aware is utterly disgusting. I sneered and turned to leave, unwilling to remain and humiliate myself further, but Vivian had no intention of letting me go. She leapt from her seat, tears streaming down her face. Stop arguing, it's all my fault. Sorry, Ethan, I didn't know sister-in-law couldn't handle it. If she's upset, I'll leave, okay? As Vivian cried, Ethan grew distressed and furiously scolded me. Who made her cry? Apologize. I looked at him in disbelief, feeling my blood rush to my head. I desperately wanted to ask Ethan what he took me for. But the words that emerged were, apologizing is out of the question. You staged this just to keep me here playing along, right? Fine, I'll stay to the end today. But. Shifting my tone, I fixed my gaze on Ethan unwaveringly. If I win, will you do anything I say? Ethan nodded instinctively. With his promise secured, I dutifully returned to my seat. The game resumed, and all eyes were on me. I needed to state an experience none of them could possibly have had to win, otherwise, Vivian would undoubtedly exhaust every means to humiliate me, so I brought up that prominent figure from the She family, saying he pursued me for 3 years, but I never agreed. Ethan's lips curled into a mocking smile almost immediately. Aria, I think you're so terrified of losing that you've gone mad. How could Xavier possibly fancy someone like you? It's no surprise Ethan doubted me. It's widely known that Xavier hails from an aristocratic lineage, far removed from our social stratum. Back then, had his father not sent him to our remote, insignificant university for training, we'd never have had the chance to be his classmates for a year, a fact the principal mentioned while thanking Xavier's father for donating 3 buildings to the school during an assembly. Later, Xavier went abroad to study, severing all contact with us. Many present were aware of this, so they unanimously concluded I was lying to win. I shrugged nonchalantly. If you don't believe me, call him and ask. Someone rolled their eyes at me in exasperation. How would we have his number? You're the one claiming he chased you, why don't you call? I casually fabricated. I found him too annoying back then and deleted his contact info. The explanation was plausible, but no one believed it, and they all berated me for being a sore loser. Ethan's face turned cold outright. It's just a game, lying makes it pointless. I understood why others were upset, given I wasn't close to them, but I couldn't fathom why Ethan, my boyfriend, was equally incensed. I'm your girlfriend, what's wrong with letting me win once? Facing my challenge, Ethan was momentarily taken aback before declaring righteously, I always uphold reason over favoritism. A loss is a loss. I sneered, speaking without holding back. Uphold reason over favoritism? Then how do you justify you and Vivian treating us all as pawns in your flirting game? Don't tell me you forgot you wore that wedding dress to accompany Vivian. You clearly knew you'd lose before saying it, you just wanted an excuse to kiss enough. Ethan interrupted me with a stern face. Then, as if fearing I'd say something more damaging, he hastily conceded, fine, you win this round, go ahead and name your punishment. I smiled with satisfaction, stood up, and slowly uttered, then, punish you to break up with me. What? Ethan was stunned. I closed my eyes, suppressing the rising bitterness, and solemnly repeated, everyone, Ethan and I have broken up. Next month's wedding is cancelled, don't make a wasted trip. After speaking, I stepped toward the exit, but Ethan suddenly rushed forward, gripping my hand, his voice laced with anger. Are you serious? I didn't respond. Ethan waited a moment, his patience exhausted, and looked at me with sarcasm. Stop joking, the invitations are already out. You're just mad I kissed Vivian. I'll kiss you now in front of everyone, okay? With that, he puckered his lips and leaned in. Seeing he was about to kiss my lips, I couldn't hold back any longer and slapped him hard across the face. The sound was sharp, and everyone froze. Vivian reacted first, her face contorting as she lunged at me, scratching wildly. Bitch, if you can't handle it, don't play. What's the big deal, hitting people? Rage surged within me. Unable to swallow it, I slapped her back. Seeing Vivian struck, Ethan's fury turned murderous. He grabbed my hair and dragged me out of the room, cursing viciously. Aria, have you fucking lost it? I winced in pain, struggling instinctively, but Ethan gripped tighter. The agony left me speechless, my fingers flailing in the air. Ethan glanced back, startled, and released me instantly. Freed, I tried to slap him again, but he effortlessly restrained my hands, glaring at me with an indescribably cold tone. Aria, stop this nonsense, enough is enough. Enough is enough? Hearing this, I nearly burst out laughing, but as the laughter came, tears followed suit. Sniffling, I pointed at Ethan, cursing through gritted teeth. You're a fucking liar, you never let go of Vivian, you deceived me. If you can't forget her, reunite with her, why entangle me? Ethan, are you even human? Ethan faltered, a flicker of guilt in his eyes. As if finally realizing what he'd done, he reached out with some regret to wipe my tears. At that moment, the room's door burst open. Someone shouted, "Ethan, trouble, Vivian's fainted." Ethan dropped me almost instantly, rushing in to carefully lift Vivian into his arms. During this, I stood numbly, receiving sympathetic looks from everyone, while Vivian, with her back to them, quietly opened her eyes and flashed me a provocative smirk. My anger flared again. I couldn't resist stepping forward, tugging Ethan's sleeve to tell him Vivian was faking it. But he wouldn't even listen, shaking off my hand and roaring, "You'd better pray she's okay." His force was immense, and I was flung to the ground, helplessly watching them leave. Gazing at their receding figures, I suddenly smiled, as if relieved that my years-long relationship had finally concluded. Ethan and I started dating in our sophomore year, 5 full years, and without Vivian, I might have married him. Fortunately, it's only been 5 years, not a lifetime. Thankfully, we hadn't held the wedding yet. There's still time, so I hurriedly propped myself against the wall, pulled out my phone, and intended to inform my parents of the cancellation. But as I turned, I accidentally bumped into someone. "Sorry." "Aria?" 2 voices sounded simultaneously. I looked up in surprise and froze entirely. Xavier, the man supposed to be abroad, was standing here. Tall and elegant, his striking features remained captivating, especially those peach blossom eyes that seemed to draw people in with a single glance. At that moment, he tilted his head, observing me. After a while, he chuckled, his lips curving upward. "Classmate, I hear you've been telling people I pursued you for 3 years?" I was dumbfounded. "How do you know?" The next second, Xavier pulled out his phone and played a video where I stood with hands on hips, chin raised, proudly declaring that he'd chased me for 3 years, but I never agreed. I genuinely hadn't expected this. There was a traitor in the crowd. I dared to fabricate this story assuming Xavier was abroad. Now, confronted by the man himself, I felt utterly mortified, wishing I could crawl into a hole, as the atmosphere turned excruciatingly awkward. Feeling compelled to say something but unsure what, I sincerely apologized. "Sorry, I didn't mean it." Xavier smiled. "Did I say I was angry?" "Huh?" I was completely baffled. What did he mean? Amid my confusion, Xavier stepped closer, his brow slightly furrowed, eyes tinged with a pitiful look. "Classmate, not inviting me to your wedding is one thing, but after all these years, won't you even offer me a drink?" I'd never seen Xavier like this, a blend of grievance, humility, and helplessness, entirely uncharacteristic of him, so I stood there, stunned. By the time I snapped out of it, Xavier was already walking away on his own, seemingly a bit upset. I hurriedly chased after him, but his long strides were too fast for me to catch up. Eventually, I mustered all my strength to dash forward, grabbing his hand to force him to stop. "Why are you walking so fast? Wait for me." Xavier turned back, startled, glancing at me with a wavering gaze. "I thought, you didn't want to treat me to anything." "How could you think that? It's just a meal, what's the big deal?" His reaction left me bewildered, so I explained, "I was just thinking about what good food is nearby." Then, suddenly recalling a great spot, I immediately led Xavier there. It was my poor man's canteen, a hidden gem of a hot pot restaurant renowned for its fresh ingredients. Xavier, having lived abroad so long, must miss this flavor. After finding a seat, I awkwardly initiated conversation. "By the way, when did you return to the country?" "The day before yesterday." I paused, inexplicably recalling that I'd only started sending wedding invitations then. That's why I saw that long sealed email, and why I didn't invite Xavier, so he certainly didn't return because of this. "Then, how long do you plan to stay this time?" "Not sure." Xavier paused, then spoke again with striking clarity. "It mainly depends on whether she's happy now." Hearing this, I abruptly looked up, meeting Xavier's eyes. We gazed at each other through the steaming vapors of the hot pot, and my heart skipped a beat. Vaguely sensing something, I panicked and averted my gaze. The atmosphere grew awkward again, my mind blank, unsure what to say, so I grabbed the nearest water to drink only to realize it was alcohol upon tasting it, yet too embarrassed to set it down, I took a reluctant sip. Just then, my phone rang from my bag. Checking it, I saw it was Ethan. I didn't want to answer, but unresolved matters between us compelled me. Ethan and I held an engagement party. The Qing family promised a 100,000 yuan dowry plus 3 gold items on the wedding day, totaling about 130,000 yuan, while my dowry was a car worth 150,000 yuan. The car was handed over at the engagement party and is currently in Ethan's possession. Now that we've broken up, I need to reclaim it. The call connected, and Ethan's anxious voice came through. Aria, the doctor says Vivian was frightened. You need to come apologize to her now. I took a deep breath and gave a faint smile. I've done nothing wrong and won't apologize to Vivian. I took this call only to inform you that I won't marry you, but we must settle the finances. Return my car to me now. Ethan sneered upon hearing this. Fine, Aria, you've gotten clever, using the breakup to threaten me. Let me tell you, this won't work if you don't come apologize obediently. I'll take Vivian for an injury check and report you to the police for assault. Wait for detention. Aria, remember, I learned this trick from you. Talking money with me, what nonsense. With that, Ethan hung up. I stood there dazed, both furious and fearful. Ethan was right. Vivian could sue me since I slapped her and she didn't retaliate, meaning a police report would force me to pay compensation, which some can afford, but I can't, so I mustn't act recklessly. Most critically, Vivian excels at pretending. If she claims psychological trauma, the costs could be endless. Damn it, I shouldn't have acted so impulsively then. As I fretted, a hand with distinct knuckles entered my view. Xavier leisurely placed a piece of fatty beef in my bowl at such a time. How could I possibly feel like eating? I opened my mouth to decline Xavier's kindness but noticed him smiling at me. Puzzled, I asked, "What are you smiling about?" His grin widened. "From what you said, you've broken up with Ethan?" Though I wasn't keen to discuss it now, it was no secret, so I nodded. Xavier asked further, "He wants you to apologize to his unforgettable ex." "Yes." "Are you really going?" "What else can I do?" Hearing this, Xavier's gaze settled on me, his tone deliberate. "I heard a rich kid slapped someone and paid $1 million. What?" My pupils widened in shock, and I sprang from my seat, trembling uncontrollably. That price could buy my life. Wait. I won't really have to shoulder $1 million in debt for one slap, will I? Terrified, I nearly leapt up to rush to the hospital and apologize to Vivian. Suddenly, Xavier grabbed my wrist, staring at me with a raised voice. "Answer one question for me, and I'll handle this for you. How's that?" "Such a deal exists?" I instinctively pressed, "What question?" Meeting my gaze, Xavier's voice turned low and husky. "Back then, why didn't you reply to me?" I froze, instantly recalling the email's contents, my cheeks growing hot. Xavier once sent me an email with a single line, "Aria, I love you. Wait for me to return." Had I seen it 6 years ago, I might have waited for him. Unfortunately, I only discovered it 2 days ago. 6 years later, while preparing to send wedding invitations to classmates, I'd struck gold, but it had expired. After all, without any response, no one would stubbornly wait 6 years for another. Xavier must have long forgotten me. He might even be married with children by now, while I had Ethan beside me. With the wedding nearing, youthful feelings were best buried, so I ignored it and moved on. Yet, I never imagined Ethan and I would end like this, nor that I'd reunite with Xavier in such a way. Marveling at fate's intricacy, I took a calm breath and told him the truth. Xavier's expression darkened abruptly. "So, you didn't dislike me?" "How could I dislike you? I really liked you back then." I opened my mouth to explain, but it was too late to notice something amiss. Xavier leaned forward, his handsome face looming large, so close I could hear his breathing, and my mind went blank. I thought he'd do something more, but he simply took my hand and led me out. I quickly asked, "Where to?" He curved his lips, smiling, "To get your injuries checked." At the hospital, I grasped Xavier's intent. Though Vivian took my slap, upon reflection, she'd scratched me first, and I'd only retaliated. Moreover, Ethan had scratched my scalp and pushed me down. These were evidence. They could sue me, but I could sue them too, countering their tactics with their own. If they refused to settle, all 3 of us would be detained. 1 for 2 isn't a loss, but I devised a better plan. I wagered Ethan wouldn't dare confront me head-on, so I grabbed the hospital's medical report and rushed to find him. Xavier insisted on accompanying me upstairs, but I refused, some matters I didn't want him involved in, so he stayed on the first floor to wait. Step by step, I approached the ward door, hearing voices through the slightly ajar entrance. "Ethan, once you're married, does that mean we can't be together?" "Silly, even if I marry, I won't abandon you." "But if sister-in-law finds out, she'll be angry. I'm scared she'll hit me again." "Afraid now? Who made you insist on breaking up with me back then? But you didn't try to stop me." "It's all your fault." Okay, all my fault, my little darling. I know I was wrong now, don't be mad, alright." As Ethan spoke, he pressed his lips to hers. Soon, kissing sounds filled the room, but I had no desire to listen further and pushed the door open. The two on the bed sprang up like startled birds. Seeing me, Ethan's face changed instantly, and he snapped coldly, "Are you sick? Entering without knocking?" Unwilling to argue, I waved the report in my hand. "This is my recent injury assessment. If you don't return my car, I'll sue you both." Ethan laughed incredulously. "Aria, what's wrong with you?" With that, he moved to snatch the medical report from me. But the next second, I pulled out my phone. "By the way, I recorded everything you just said. Want to hear it, or should I send it straight to your parents?" Ethan fell silent. I slowly opened my palm toward him. "Car keys." He remained expressionless, saying nothing, his gaze deep and resentful, as if I were an enemy. I wasn't rushed and played the recording. When Vivian's coy Ethan sounded, he lost control, grabbed the keys from the table, and hurled them at me. "Take your damn stuff and get the hell out." The sharp end of the keys slashed my arm, blood gushing forth like a spring. A flicker of panic crossed Ethan's eyes, and he instinctively stepped forward to help me. "Ethan," Vivian suddenly called, her voice trembling as if startled, so Ethan halted and turned to soothe her. I couldn't be bothered to watch, quickly bent to pick up the keys, and walked out. Ethan called after me, "Aria, think carefully. Our wedding's next month. If you promise not to bully Vivian anymore, I'll marry you as planned, or you'll be the one humiliated." "Crazy." I laughed in anger and left without looking back. On the first floor, Xavier spotted my arms wound at once and, alarmed, pulled me to get it treated. In truth, the wound only appeared severe. A band-aid sufficed, but on the way back, Xavier stayed silent. I spoke several times, and he only answered what was asked. His responses were stiff and minimal. Only after realizing we'd circled the hospital 5 times did he ask for my address, but I deliberately didn't reply. He asked again, and I still didn't respond. Finally, he parked by the roadside, and we sat there silently, staring at each other. Midway, finding the car stuffy, I raised my hand to roll down the window but accidentally hit my wound. With a hiss, Xavier immediately leaned forward, gently lifting my arm to inspect it carefully. I meant to tease him for overreacting, but my gaze inadvertently slipped through his shirt collar to his firm chest, then lower to faintly visible abs. Tempting. I couldn't help but salivate, swallowing audibly in the silence. Catching on, Xavier raised an eyebrow and chuckled. "Like it?" "Yes, very much." I nodded eagerly. The next second, warmth enveloped my wrist as his large hand guided mine to his abs. My thread of rationality snapped entirely. I explored Xavier from head to toe with ease until reaching a sensitive spot, when he abruptly stopped me. "Wait. Aria, don't be hasty. I want you to think clearly. Finding him too verbose, I kissed him directly. Initially, I just wanted to silence him, but somehow it spiraled. Later, Xavier's lips moved elsewhere, unrelenting. The next day, my phone was inundated with calls, everyone asking about Ethan and me. Checking it, I saw Ethan's Facebook post, "Wedding proceeds as planned, my bride is Vivian," paired with the wedding photo Vivian had deliberately shown me during the game. Ethan even commented, "Due to personal reasons of the original bride, Mizzen, we've parted ways. Henceforth, we owe each other nothing and won't slander each other." What a fine "owe nothing, no slander." Ethan intended to dump all the blame on me. Furious and about to curse, my phone suddenly vibrated incessantly as mechanical tones announced, "Bank card credited 1,314,000 yuan. Bank card credited 5,200,000 yuan. Bank card credited 5,201,314 yuan. What's happening? Confused, I felt a searing warmth around my waist. Turning, I saw Xavier smiling at me. This is? Xavier lowered his head, kissed my lips, his voice husky. Baby, this is my dowry, marry me. Before I could reply, his long finger hooked my strap, flicking it lightly, causing my skin to bounce. I tried to stifle my voice, but it grew more alluring. Waking again, it was afternoon. I immediately told my parents about Ethan. They scolded him and Vivian for a full half-hour before consoling me not to be sad. Darling daughter, don't fear, mom and dad will always support you. If he won't marry you, so what? We'll care for you forever. Come home when you can, I'll make your favorite pig's trotter with ginger. Hearing this, I wept and promised mom I'd return tomorrow. After hanging up, I realized I hadn't retaliated against Ethan. He'd posted that Facebook to shame me, so I wouldn't let him off easy and promptly drafted a similar post. Wedding proceeds as planned, groom changed to Xavier. P.S. Wedding photos pending, to be taken later. Comment, due to personal reasons of ex-boyfriend Mr. Ching, we've parted. Henceforth, we owe nothing and won't defame each other. Soon after posting, Ethan called. I expected him to crack, but he mocked me. Ha ha ha, Aria, you've got guts posting that, even using Xavier's name. Watch out, if his parents find out, they might sue you into jail. Honestly, I felt a bit uncertain. After all, Xavier's family outclasses mine vastly, and neither of us had met the other's parents yet. Posting like that was excessive, so I set it visible only to Ethan. He's seen it now, and I'll delete it soon. No one else knows. Ha ha ha. I laughed heartily. Ethan, you're the fool. Stunned, he cursed crazy and hung up. The next day, I planned to drive home for pig's trotter with ginger. Xavier insisted on joining. I refused, so he kept me from getting up. After several tussles, I relented. Yet, upon reaching my doorstep, the insistent one grew shy, breathing deeply for ages, refusing to enter. I gritted my teeth and decided to leave him outside. I planned to fetch him after eating, but just as I bit into the trotter, he pounded the door loudly. Exasperated, I rolled my eyes and opened it. To my shock, beside Xavier stood a couple who resembled his elders. Once inside, I learned they were his parents. This guy. Since I'd rolled my eyes at guests, mom found me too embarrassing and locked me in my room. I've no idea what they discussed in the living room. All I know is, when released, Xavier's parents had left, and my parents smiled. We approve this marriage, daughter, marry him with peace of mind. Wait, what did I miss? Later, I learned his parents came to propose. Their several gift boxes were all valuable, and the wedding was set for next month, a day before Ethan's. That night after my wedding, Ethan called, still arrogant. Aria, this is your last chance. My offer stands. Promise not to bully Vivian, and tomorrow's bride is still you. I'll tell everyone the Facebook post was a misunderstanding. Stunned, I laughed in anger. As I was about to reply, the man beside me said, Honey, rested enough? Dead silence followed on the line, then Ethan's shrill scream, Aria, who the fuck are you with? Caught off guard by his yell, I was about to move the phone away when Xavier snatched it, chuckling into it. Hee hee, old classmate. Hi, I'm Xavier. What's your business calling my wife in the middle of the night? Ethan was shocked. Xavier? Really you? Yes, indeed. I hear your wedding's tomorrow. Congrats. If there's nothing else, please don't randomly call my wife again, thanks. With that, Xavier hung up, then looked at me resentfully. A chill ran down my spine, and I quickly took the phone, blocking all of Ethan's contacts in front of him. After this, his expression remained sour. Giving up, I rolled to the corner, but the next second, Xavier leaned over me, annoyed. Didn't you rest enough? Why hide? Xavier's perspective. My father raised me with strict discipline. Everything followed his precise steps. Even smiling required showing 8 teeth. My life was bound by rules. Disobedience brought punishment, so I was always compliant. But one day, I grew weary and rebelled. I ran from home to a random internet cafe, gaming for a day and night, earning a year's exile from my elite school to one in the mountains. Everything here paled compared to my old school, yet the students were vibrant, especially my deskmate Aria, always cheerful and incredibly kind-hearted. New and unaccustomed to the food and strangers, only she cared for me. 18-year-old Aria's radiant, bold smile captivated me at first glance. Sadly, after a year, I had to return. This time, my father, aware of my feelings, banished me abroad with no return date, leaving me only an email for Aria. But she didn't reply, and the next year, she was with someone named Ethan. I was heartbroken, thinking she liked me too, but she loved another, so I tried to let go, yet the more I did, the more I couldn't forget her. Later, I'd return annually, secretly watching her from afar. My father inquired about my personal life, but no matter his words or introductions, I stayed my own course. Until a friend told me Aria was marrying. She hadn't invited me. Had she truly forgotten me? Dejected, I still wanted to see her in a wedding dress, even if not as my bride, so I returned again. I'd planned to drown my sorrows with that mutual friend, but he had to meet another returnee first, promising to join me later. Left with no choice, I sang lonely love songs alone in the room. After countless repeats, my friend sent videos to stave off boredom, offering melons to chew on. Opening them, I saw Aria being tormented by a manipulative woman. Ethan, that bastard, wasn't satisfied with her alone. He brought another woman to humiliate her. Did he want to die? Furious, I wanted to rush in and take Aria away, but feared she'd forgotten me, making my actions presumptuous. As I wavered, another video arrived. I opened it hastily and heard Aria say I'd pursued her for 3 years, but she didn't agree. My God, she said that, she remembered me. Great, my chance had come. I promptly appeared in her view, even coaxing her to treat me to food, but her reaction seemed unhappy. Did she really dislike me that much? Sigh, fine. I'd better leave. Halfway out, Aria grabbed my hand. In that instant, I didn't hear her words, my mind consumed with, "We're holding hands. We're holding hands." Later, we truly got together. I finally married the girl I loved. Heaven knows how long I'd waited for this day, and thankfully, my wish came true.